Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Monday, October 12th. Starting late because I mostly stayed up throughout the entire night working on my old computer, trying to get that set up, installing CentOS, CentOS, which is kind of the small time replacement for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which I don't know if anybody really even uses Red Hat Enterprise Linux anymore because of the just massive amount of licensing fees and everything around that. But unfortunately, it was used definitely a lot in the old days, so there definitely is a lot of people that have training and understanding on how to use it versus, say, Debian Linux. There really isn't a ton of difference there, particularly once you start to decide how you want things to look. Like the biggest change is a visual change. It's very Windows 10 at really a certain level where they've all kind of gone in different directions and made things that look different but not actually any better than what a standard Windows 95 interface would have looked like. But all the software at the back end is pretty much the same. The biggest difference between a Debian flavor of Linux is that you would use something called apt-get to install something. On CentOS you use a program called yum. Pretty much the exact same terminology after that. There are slightly different programs available, so you might have a bit of a trouble finding very specific things, but probably not too much, if any, really, of that is going to happen. But because I was doing all of that, I certainly have not been playing Shadowverse or logging in the Shadowverse. Really, I've just kind of completely dropped the ball there. So yeah, Shadowverse is by far, of the three major collectible card games I've played, it's by far the latest one for me to really just drop the ball and not even stay with the daily logins or anything. Which, well, not fine, is okay by me. But yeah, I tried to install CentOS version 8. Apparently that's not fully cooked, so I went back to installing CentOS version 7. And since I'm trying to make a very minimal, just network attached storage, like build, I'm not trying to do anything really crazy there, at least to start off. That it really wasn't that much setup, but it still took probably a day, past another day of just messing around and trying to get it to actually installed. And this is all really at the core of it to ensure that I can get a ZFS RAID, which currently on the CentOS with a compression level of 9, which is like the slowest of the slowest compression level for the amount of space, it thinks that my 4 terabyte RAID Z3 hard drives somehow, no, they're not 4 terabytes. Are they? Yeah, they are. It thinks there's 9 terabytes of space there, which, that doesn't make any sense either. So I need to go back and look at all of that. But then also I need to go back and figure out how to get the data on my old computer to start to be able to transfer over. And then at a certain point, I think I'm just going to duplicate my, see, I guess when playing Shadowcraft or Bloodcraft, so let's see if we can make a Shadowcraft deck, which it will just be easier. We're no longer getting chests. I dropped that. I dropped the ball there too. Let's see. We don't even have any Shadowcraft rotation decks. Interesting. Well, then that gives us an opportunity to make a new one. Yep. I've kind of forgotten about Luna. Yeah, after about a year in... No, it hasn't been a year, but after a couple months into it, you kind of forget about Luna completely as a character. For as weird as she is, just being too young looking as a character, that really only affects the story, because you just don't see her that often in actual play. And there's so many skins that replace her and other things. Draw cards. Draw cards. Like, I don't know how Shadowcraft would synergize with this. See, we could summon 4 ghosts. We could try to do a ghost. We can do a burial ritual and summon ghosts. We can do a burial ritual and get +1/+1. We can bring in demons. But what does that actually do? You have one. Destroys a random enemy and then restores your health. Discard a random card. Or deal damage to everybody. That's not inherently the best options. 2 damage to an enemy leader. That's not terrible. Restore. So this might be just a direct damage idea. That's not too bad. Necromancy. Draw 2 cards. Summon a skeleton. That pretty much then eliminates anything we would want as far as Shadowcraft, and that's only 9 cards. Which, for decks of 40, I guess that kind of makes sense, that you would really only want to potentially replace 1/4 of a deck, considering there are 5 different expansions. This one has Drain. I'm gonna throw it in, but it's probably not good. What is Imperial Mammoth? An 8/9. Probably don't need that. This is an invocation. Interesting. So yeah, I'm not doing much this weekend. Over the weekend I also did a Lego gingerbread house, which there was a miniature Lego gingerbread house that came out as a free gift in 2019. In 2020, I don't know if there's been any really amazing free gifts. I've kind of fallen off of paying attention to Lego. I have far too much Lego anyways, but yeah, I still plan on buying some just this weekend on top of Amazon Prime Day, which is all I plan on doing this weekend, frankly, so it's going to be a fairly slow weekend. That's probably not a terrible idea, considering how it seems like we are just going to more and more have situations where there's really nothing to talk about in the video game world, or at least very, very little to talk about in the video game world. So Now, tomorrow and the day after that is just Prime Day, so I will stream, but that's pretty much it. As far as Prime Day goes, I've probably said this out loud to people, but I'll say it again. It's seemingly going to be very hard to find things that you actually were going to buy on sale on Prime Day versus things that Amazon wants to sell you. There is, I think, noteworthy to say a push to have people skip Prime Day, but inherently, if you're going to boycott Amazon, you should boycott it every day, not just on the day that they try to have their big sale before everybody else has a Black Friday sale. And if anything, Prime Day has potentially pushed other people into moving their sales further and further back away from Black Friday, which is a good move, I think. In general, the idea that nobody buys anything and nobody makes any profit until Black Friday inherently shows how capitalism is 100% a choice of consumerism versus a system around a need to pay for things. And the true economy, as it would be seen by someone who was just a 100% what's the word, puritanical type person who only buys something that they absolutely need. The true economy, if everybody was like that and nobody bought anything for entertainment or anything that they didn't need at all, and there was no frivolousness in shopping, the true economy of the world, in a world like that, would be incredibly less, and businesses would not really be able to make anywhere as much profit as they do, and they wouldn't be able to advertise as much as they do. They've kind of locked themselves into this circular reasoning where we have to spend millions of dollars to advertise so we can get more millions of dollars of purchases for this product that should never have really existed at all. Like, at the core of it, that's really what it comes down to. If there was just some cruel dictator out there, or kindly dictator if you want to look at it that way, who said there can be no sodas, we're just not going to allow sodas to exist, we're not going to let people pay for it, a lot of people would be upset that they can't drink soda. But on the other hand, if there had never been sodas, nobody would have really cared. And so that's where it splits, is that the idea of a free market economy allows for a lot of dumb products to exist, cigarettes, alcohol, things like that, and it allows them to advertise and make people feel worse about their lives, which that's the true cost of advertising. Isn't really as much that it convinces people to buy things. That happens over the course of thousands upon thousands of impressions of seeing the same commercial over and over again. The true cost of advertising is that it makes people miserable and unhappy with their lives when they would have been content otherwise, or one assumes they would have been content otherwise. And it has this weird knock-on effect of not letting people create their own things, which we're seeing a shift of that with content creators, and everyone wanting to be a YouTuber. Of course, there's a balance there too. Like, you shouldn't go into being a content creator because you want to be famous. You should go into a content creator because you have a deep burning desire inside of you to create something, to do something new and unique. And that sometimes gets confused. And I imagine we will have a generation that in the future have all created something and put it on YouTube or some service like that, and then realized, oh, that was fun, but that's definitely not something I would want to put my life's effort into. This is a very roundabout way of talking about the Amazon Prime Day sales, but yeah, I'm not sure how many things are actually going to really go through and purchase things. There are some things that I just have been wanting to do and wanting to purchase, and that's really what it's coming down to, is like I need to get a new TV, I need to get some like bookshelves, things that probably won't be on sale, but that's about it. Like, sure, if I see a Raspberry Pi, maybe I'll consider that, but see, we still got like 5 pages, so I need to come back here and really think about what do I want to get rid of. That's probably a really expensive card. This is a zombies card. And I need to decide whether I'm reanimating or burial writing, because that's really where this is gonna fall down to. Because if I'm just doing last words, that's really nothing. And if I'm just summoning ghosts, that's kind of nothing. Interesting. This card might be useful. Gain 4 shadows. So yeah, but yeah, inherently, as we move towards Black Friday, there is Prime Day that gives you about a month break, but then there's also right now Lego double VIP points, which is about the best you can get as far as buying Legos directly from Lego. Then there will be some other sales. That's probably not too bad. But I definitely do need cheaper cards in my deck. Otherwise, this is going to be a really bad deck. Don't need any great nature in trees. This would just draw Shadowcraft characters out of your hand, which, if you were going to do that, then you'd really have to have a bunch of neutral cards and only 2 Shadowcraft cards that you actually wanted to play. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that leaves me at like 40. This isn't a good deck by any means, but it does let us play with these cards and try. So let's come over here. Let's check the chat. See if anybody said anything. And let's do this, and do this, and do this. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I don't want to get back to talking about the sales. I'll probably report back on Wednesday just how much ridiculousness happens and how much I just betray what I'm saying now and end up going on a major spending binge. Ideally, what one would want to see for Prime Day is them just giving away things that were giving away either gift cards, credits to the store, or giving away giving away like everything that's in somebody's shopping cart or in somebody's wish list. I would say Amazon Prime kind of drops the ball as trying to push any new features of their website or do anything new with their website. I'd also say Amazon Prime should probably be changed. Where did this one come from? Why do I have this? Where did these Shadowcraft cards come from?
I won't stop singing until there's world peace.
It's kind of like the worst way to play that. So yeah, I might go crazy with that, but Amazon should probably be split up between 3 or 4 different services. Like, if there was one site that was as trustworthy to sell clothes versus one that would sell electronics versus one that would sell books. I don't even know if books inherently fall under that category. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if there actually is enough of a desire to buy books anymore, but yeah, if they split their little grocery thing that they had acquired, that is something that I think the United States government really needs to address, is that they need to tell Facebook that, look, you can be either Facebook or you can be Instagram, but you can't be both. Although that's not a very good service inherently. It would be much better to split up Facebook and say, look, you can be this front-end service that sells advertisement, but you can't also be the people that are running the ads. So I would say the background advertising division of Facebook should be its own company that with its own rules and regulations that sells ads across multiple sites, and then Facebook would simply sell ad space to this second company instead of Facebook being able to internally manipulate things to its benefit that benefits neither the advertiser nor the end user.
It's so
it's kind of hard to say Twitter should be split up since Twitter only does like one thing anyways, but yeah, so there are arguments that some big services just really shouldn't don't need to be split up. It would be hard to say something like Reddit needs to be split up, although Reddit probably needs to be regulated in some way. Let's see. This is not really needed. Where did those cards come from? Let's see. How did I end up with so many bad cards? Hmm. This would just give a zombie to the other player. No, it gives a zombie to you when it dies for 3. Maybe that's worth it. Enhance 5 to reanimate 3 and evolve. If this one's evolved, it gives you 4 shadows. That seems fairly difficult. Enhance to evolve. Interesting. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Really didn't pay enough attention, did I? Bring in more of those. We'll try that out. Wow, like 2 whole pages. And then bring in more of those, and we'll try that out. Allied amulets in play. I don't think we probably need that. Bring in a couple of those and we'll try that out. We don't want to make too many changes here and waste a bunch of time. But yeah. So let's start talking about video game news. I will say that yesterday's Friday's stream nearly filled up my hard drive all the way together, and I am still completely dropping the ball as far as getting videos uploaded and getting videos scheduled. So I'll, over the next 2 days of not really recording anything, I'll try to focus more on that also. But I probably won't get very far. See, what's a really great way to use this? See, because there's one card, there's an in-game where if you have 30 shadows, you win, but that's not in rotation. So building a deck around having shadows really isn't around the idea of pulling that off. So there needs to be a more subtle or just consistent idea that happens. Although it doesn't really kill you to have five shadows before you even start, or fairly quickly. So I'm gonna go and scroll down my Twitter page just to see what there is to talk about, and then we'll go through the video game news, and that's pretty much it. Destroy 1 and restore 4 defense. That's not something we need to do. 2 damage to that, and restore 2 defense is not something I needed to do either. There probably is an idea of having fanfare cards that would do something bad versus burial rites, where you would bury the cards that have bad effects. That might be the synergy there. Enemy follower and a burial rite to draw a card. So if I did this and then got rid of the bad one to do that,
what's next?
and then that, we're up to 10 shadows. This reanimates.
No!
If I win here, I'll be very surprised. Here we have a game on Steam called Achievement Killer, which seems like my zoom is a little off. Yep, there we go. Achievement Killer, as you can see, is absolutely nothing. This is probably one of the lowest effort achievement games I've seen on Steam ever. It's 99 cents, it's English only, it has 100 achievements. Steam theoretically had addressed that as an issue, and so how it got back to the point where people could get away with that, I don't know.
Darling, you complete me.
Let's see. At the end of your turn, destroy 6 other random followers. Then if the leader has 7 or more defense, deal damage until the defense drops to 6. Well, how come I can't evolve this? This has to be evolved with a card effect. Okay. Which sucks. So, yeah. It's kind of crazy that Steam would somehow be able to drop the ball and let such an obvious achievement game onto their platform. Perhaps it's been quite a while since they've actually talked about achievement games and low effort games that are just designed around giving achievements, but they were aware of it, they were dealing with it, so you can't really pretend like this is not something that they should be addressing. Let's see.
Watch me, miss.
There might be room here for making a deck where you evolve using card effects.
Coming for you.
Do that.
Frigid bunch of critics.
Detestable.
That.
Guess I got too hot under the collar.
Detestable.
That.
Like
That.
You like the cold?
unbelievable.
See, I've got him down to 12, but he has 7 cards in his deck, or 8 cards in his deck. So there's still a lot of room here for me to lose. And by all rights, I should lose. This is a just awful deck.
I feel slushy.
Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Doctor Who: The Edge of Reality has been announced for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Join the 13th and 10th Doctors on a quest to save the universe. So, it's kind of crazy that they're having to bring back the 10th Doctor, who is, I think, by far the most interesting Doctor in the reboot series, to mix with the 13th Doctor, who is, I think, by far, personally, the worst written character. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the actress herself. I think if she'd been given better stories, and maybe a better character sheet, there would have been something.
To a new world.
Right. Interesting. Wonder how that's gonna work. Let's see. I don't think when this is summoned, it will summon as an invocation. That's really what something like this would really be useful for. But it might be summoned a different way. It's an interesting thought. But inherently, you can just see by this image that you're seeing the Cybermen, you're seeing the Daleks, you're seeing Weeping Angels here, some kind of land area over here, and maybe something over here. I can't even really see the image, it's so small. But you're not really seeing new characters or anything of interest. I know that there was like a VR Doctor Who game, and I wonder if this is the VR Doctor Who game just in outside of VR. Let me not show the teaser, but look and see if I can show a better description. The problem with the VR game was that it was kind of just a very stationary thing where you were staying in small areas and doing other things, doing very simple puzzles and really just having the
Want to play?
yeah, you're really just having Doctor Who voiceover talk to you the whole time.
Death will not let you pass.
So yeah, all I'm seeing is a bunch of like panning shots of like the TARDIS and the Cybermen and all that. So it does kind of feel like this very well might be
Conserving waters.
very similar, if not the same. Let's see. So yeah, they're even saying this. They've announced Doctor Who: The Edge of Reality, first-person adventure sequel to the virtual reality titled Doctor Who: The Edge of Time. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing. Now, inherently, there should be Doctor Who games just constantly getting made and released, as much as there should be Doctor Who episodes that are constantly getting made and released. Doctor Who being at its core a kid's show, or at least thinking at its core that it should be a kid's show, which is how I think it does think of itself. Yeah, at that point want to go for a little bit more quantity over quality, in the same way that there's not a huge amount of Scooby-Doo episodes that I think you could immediately mention off the top of your head if you're not a huge Scooby-Doo fan that are worth mentioning. But there is a general impression and like for Scooby-Doo, and I think that point, 2 defense or less. Interesting.
You like the cold?
I'm gonna lose.
Wind, grant them courage. Conserving waters, sustain me.
So yeah, if there was a Doctor Who every Saturday on the BBC, and it came out worldwide on other channels, but it was just every Saturday, and it was fairly bad, but well enough. And frankly, it probably should be like 45 minutes at most. And that was the problem with the old Doctor Who's, is that the episodes were not only inconsistent, they were also often incredibly long. It was just the BBC trying to fill up dead air. That just doesn't really work. Let's see. That didn't work either. What else can we say played poorly in this deck? That didn't really work either. I don't think that works either. There we go. Just tiny little modifications as we keep on trying. But yeah, every week there should be a Doctor Who episode. Every month, not month, but every quarter or to half year, or at least minimum every year, there should be a new Doctor Who game. A Telltale style Doctor Who that with episodic releases might actually even work. That is, an episodic TV show being converted into an episodic game makes a decent amount of sense, where a lot of the other non-episodic stories didn't make so much sense. The Walking Dead was episodic, of course, so the Walking Dead game kind of works. Although, probably not so much because of that element. I think one of the things that Telltale dropped the ball on is that they sold their content as episodic, but they never really created the content as episodic, in the sense that they were going to do an entire long-running series of 100 episodes. Moving on, we have an article here from Komatsu. Guilty Gear Strive launches April 9th, adds Giovanna and Anji Mito, which I would guess this is Giovanna in the shadow and this is Anji Mito, but it could be the exact opposite. Guilty Gear Strive is a fighting game, I'm fairly certain. So, yeah. Nope, this actually is Giovanna. And you can see these screenshots. And Guilty Gear seems to be more of a weapon fighting style game. Do this. See, next we have a game on Steam here called The Viking Way, which is mixed in reviews and looks like another one of these totally accurate battle simulator games, although they do seem to have tried to put some more elements around this. It's early access, it's single player only, it's English and Chinese. Yeah. At a certain point, when I see a game like this, I can't even really say, well, this looks like a cheap Chinese game. This looks like this is probably a Chinese company really trying to make a game and just suffering from the fact that video game consoles at least, have been illegal in China for 2 or 3 decades, it feels like, and thus they are just so incredibly farther behind than they should be compared to the rest of society that they can't catch up. And there's, I don't think, really a lot of room to think that there can be a technological revolution in the same ways as there can be an industrial revolution. And in all fairness, the industrial revolution probably heavily relied on stealing other countries' technology and secrets too, but you know, at a certain point, stealing the blueprints for an engine is a lot easier to do than stealing the understanding and comprehension and just having the mindset to be able to program a video game. Let's see. Alright, well, then burial right the 1-1 character, since they're not, there's nothing there. And then evolve. Do that. Do that. Do that. And I'll just sit on the evolves. But yeah, since the Viking Way is already mixed, that's its first impression. There's no reason for it to be on the follow list. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Crackdown 2 developer Ruffian Studios is now a Rockstar Games studio. After a year-long development partnership, Rockstar Games has full-on acquired the Crackdown 2 developer Ruffian Games and rebranded the new subsidiary as Rockstar Dundee. What does that inherently mean? I don't know if it means as much as it seems like it might mean. Let's see. We can do this and get rid of that.
Work starts at sunset.
And then go ahead and play this. Go ahead and evolve this.
You can never have too need alone.
that,
The world cycles on.
and that. So, yeah. If I recall correctly, yeah, now that I think about it, having played Crackdown 2, Crackdown 2 was pretty terrible compared to Crackdown 1. And Crackdown 3, I think, is slightly better than Crackdown 2, but it inherently not still anywhere as good as Crackdown 1. So, yeah, there might be an argument that there was a time and place issue, certainly with Crackdown 1 2, that there was just not that much competition. What does a giant skull look like? It is a 6/5 with ward, and it summons 2 skeletons. Or I can reanimate a 5.
Does this outfit make me look too moany?
Let's see.
Want to play?
Yep. I think, in retrospect, if you're gonna really think about Crackdown 1, there is a template in Crackdown 1 of running around and gunning and jumping and platforming and doing superhuman, like Superman type gameplay. In fact, Crackdown 1 might be an interesting superhero type game if it were set in the Marvel JC universe. But there isn't too much of a story around Crackdown 1. There's 3 islands, and each of those 3 islands are run by stereotypical gang leaders, which inherently in the modern day might come off as offensive, frankly, to play those stereotypes. In each of the gang leaders, they wouldn't come out until you'd defeated either one or more, I can't even remember, of their lieutenants. So there was a bit of a tree there that you had to work around.
You betcha.
But yeah, I don't know if you can make something like Crackdown 1 and make it make sense and make it work. There's also a twist at the end that kind of shows that there is a secret bad guy, which then gets completely ignored, I think, in Crackdown 2 and Crackdown 1. Crackdown 2 had a day and night cycle. There was really no reason for a day and night cycle, but they were so proud of it that then half of Crackdown 2 is around fighting citizens who have been infected and turned into mutants that come out during the night, which makes a very different game.
Foul forces of darkness, bow before my tempest.
Let's see. At the start of your 10th turn, invoke this card and evolve it. I could draw 2 cards, and I can really just do that, though.
The world cycles on.
And then can't really do that. Can't really do that, so I might as well do this.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Which means I should have played that instead.
Life is too rare.
Yeah, I don't know if there's
Wind,
any
grant
great
them
reason
courage.
to evolve anything. Crackdown 2 was made by a different team than what made Crackdown 1, and it was probably an experiment in the wrong direction for Microsoft, and it probably in a small part led to them just acquiring companies. It probably also shows that Ruffian Games was not in the mood to be acquired by Microsoft, because Microsoft probably would have would have purchased them if they were. Although maybe Microsoft didn't like the lineup of Ruffian games, which might be an interesting thing to look at, is to compare the companies that Microsoft did acquire versus the things Microsoft didn't acquire. I will say in my own conspiracy theory that Microsoft is actually acquiring a bunch of companies to help DirectX 13 be all that it can be. Crackdown 2 developers probably didn't add much new code that could have been copied into a DirectX 13. They probably were using the exact same code base that was from Crackdown 1 or similar code base, and so they're not really adding anything. Whereas like Ruffian Games probably works fairly well for for a company like Rockstar Games that has to make a new GTA, and Crackdown was effectively similar enough to GTA. But then you also then run into the problem now that there probably won't ever be another RoboCop style Crackdown game. The player base that would have been interested in that are either separated now with Spider-Man and Marvel games, or they're separated with just playing Saints Row games or GTA games. So I don't inherently think this is a home run to say that the next GTA will be great, and I don't think this increases the odds of there being a Crackdown 4 or Crackdown reboot. And at a certain point, I don't think Microsoft is going to double down on that mistake and try and make a Crackdown 4 just to show off some kind of network playing through the cloud's processing power technology. Although some of that technology almost certainly did get ported into the streaming service of that Microsoft does now have. It's just not
I did it! I won!
Yeah, I'm getting lucky here, and I'll take lucky victories. I'll take lucky victories any day. I might actually have a decent deck starting to grow here. And there might really only be enough cards in my collection to play one Shadowcraft deck in rotation, but if I went to unlimited, I think there probably is room to split it into 2 or 3 groups.
Mother, father, come on!
2 or 3
Don't
different
underestimate
ideas.
me.
Let's not play that one. Let's not play that one. Let's not play that one. Game Message has an article here. Epic versus Apple judge warns of serious ramifications for console makers. Let's see. The legal battle between Apple and Epic Games over the former decision to remove Fortnite over the App Store over a breach of platform guidelines could have, quote, serious ramifications for Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, and other game platformers. Which, yeah, I think what we're having here is all signs seem to be that the judge is doing exactly what judges do, which is to heavily imply, ooh, I'm just going to keep riding this win streak of people conceding. The judge is trying to heavily imply that if they take this all the way to a court case, it could be bad for both sides. So you two need to get into arbitration, Apple and Epic do, and settle this outside of court so that the judge doesn't have to waste their time on this, because judges have to listen to real court cases and not just petty disputes between companies like Apple and Epic. Now there is something to the level of district courts where certain judges kind of become experts in certain fields, and then they just opt to try and take all those cases. But in a lot of situations, a judge might be hearing a legal complaint that between like a bar and a food service provider one day, and then they might be hearing a legal complaint between like Apple and Epic the next day, or they might be hearing a legal complaint between just two people fighting over a plot of land the next day. It could be anything and everything. So judges aren't going to be fully educated on any part of the law. The law is too complicated, full stop, and needs to be rewritten. But short of that, it's just too complicated and too long, and there's not any way a judge could be an expert in all that. And judges aren't really supposed to be super experts on things. They're really just supposed to be wise enough and smart enough to know if one of the lawyers is completely lying to them. Otherwise, it's up to each lawyer on each side to show the precedent of previous law decisions. So you have this odd system in which judges make decisions based on information given to them by lawyers, between two competing lawyers from two competing parties in most scenarios, which is really at the core of it a garbage in, garbage out system, and this is part of the reason why the law becomes super complicated, because if you have one good, you don't have like one good lawyer telling you the absolute truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and one lawyer that's completely corrupt telling you absolute lies, nothing but lies. It's two lawyers who are manipulating the data for their side, and both are kind of lying to the judge. And then the judge is supposed to make a good decision based on two separate opposing lawyers telling you lies, and that decision then becomes precedent in most cases that is used for other decisions. The whole system really falls apart if the actual goal is to have the best outcome, the most truthful information lead to the best outcome. That really can't happen in the legal system. But for this kind of case, it's not probably going to affect too much. The thing that they're mostly implying is the idea that, and you can see it here, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft all operate similar walled gardens or closed platform models as Apple, whereby the hardware, operating system, digital marketplace, and the IAPs are in-app purchases are all exclusive to the platform owner. So if Epic was to get its way and try it, one of its claims that it's trying to get, and I don't think it really wants this, but one of the things it's claiming it's trying to get is to force Apple to have other app stores on it. If that was allowed, then the absolute next step is that Apple, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo would have to have separate app stores, and none of those people would want that, and inherently that would drastically increase the cost of the hardware. We would not be getting whatever small discounts we are getting. In all seriousness, if you look at the price of the Xbox Series X and the price of the PlayStation 5, triple that price, and that's probably the actual cost of the hardware. So if you wanted to pay 3 times the price for consoles, Epic, that's what potentially would happen if Epic wins. And unfortunately, that is the trade-off. see, this, and then this, and then evolve this.
I'll show you.
Look into her eyes. The cats demand it.
Make sure to book with us again.
So yeah. Unfortunately, we're gonna just constantly get little hints, little bits of teases towards this court case for a long time. And at a certain point, if there was more video game news to talk about, I would just not have bothered to. I would just not bother to even mention it. Moving on, Gamasutra has also an article. NAG Studios has netted $1 million to create an esports games, or several esports games. That's a little bit interesting because I kind of feel like esports, particularly in the pandemic times, are dead in the water. So I'm not really sure how you fix that. Like how you have esports. Like in a weird way, I think esports is better off dying now than potentially becoming something big and unattainable. Like, there's really not a lot of reason for me to talk about this, but over the weekend there happened to be a football game that NFL football game that I happened to flip on for half a second. I don't watch football. I find it long and boring and annoying. But inherently there is a bigger reason that became blatantly obvious this weekend as to why no one should ever watch football or support it or allow it to even exist. It should be boycotted completely. And it's the fact that football, in its current status, is a net negative to society in every single way you can think. Sure, it may entertain people, but it's a blood sport that is just overly shown as this weekend a up and coming person horrifically broke their ankle playing this dumb game that is designed to have heavy hitting and heavy impact, and has literally no actual benefit other than entertainment to people. It also, sports, professional sports and college sports, have corrupted the entire education system to the point where people that end up being NFL football players have nothing better going on in their life once they're out of football, and they get a lot of money at the front and then they usually burn out of that. There's a lot of people in the NFL that don't even get a lot of money, and that's just not what you should want to do with your life. But on top of that, it's kind of every single person's fault that watches football every time there's an injury. Like, you asked for football to keep happening. You knew that this risk was potentially something that was going to happen, and yet you still allowed it and encouraged it. In the same way that I wouldn't encourage people to skydive without a parachute, and I wouldn't watch people that skydived without a parachute, because that is just an incredibly, incredibly risky thing. And there's just so much emotion and passion around NFL football, particularly in the United States. I don't think anyone outside the world cares about it, but you can apply the same to soccer. There's some horrific injuries in soccer. Rugby's even worse. Whereas things like baseball and cricket and things like that, games that are designed to not inherently encourage impacts are way better, on that factor. Like, I can't inherently make an argument that baseball should be banned because of injuries. I could say that baseball should be banned because it's a boring game, or because and perhaps it is boring because it's not a game that's a blood sport around it. MMA, same thing, should be banned. Boxing should be banned. These are unethical sports. These are things that are designed around an acceptable risk of injury that is not acceptable in the real world. Like, if you were
I'll be on my way, Master.
if you were to tackle people in your day-to-day regular life, you would be arrested for assault very quickly, and yet it's acceptable in sports. If you were to actively put on padding so that you could tackle people more often and do more impacts. And people have seemingly forgotten completely about the long-lasting effects of chronic traumatic brain injury, CTB, which is totally a thing, and the NFL has been hiding that forever. So yeah, I feel this need to cast judgment and tell people, look inside yourself. If you're a fan of football, NFL, if you're a fan of any of these blood sports, you're encouraging this violence and you're encouraging these injuries, and it really is your fault. And and instead of people admitting that to themselves, that they take absolutely no responsibility, and then they just go thoughts and prayers, basically, which we've all seen the meme. Like, my thoughts and prayers are with this person. Your thoughts and prayers were not with this person before they were injured, when you were encouraging them to do dangerous activities that led to their injury. If you cared about those people, you would tell them, don't play these sports. Get a real education. Get an actual job that actually contributes to society and doesn't just act as the new Colosseum, a la Rome. Of course, that is, in all fairness, easy for me to say as a non-fan of sports of pretty much any kind. But there's darts, there's billiards, there's axe throwing, there's curling, things. There's plenty of non-violent sports if you try hard enough to look for them. But at a certain point, so many sports become the religion and the sacred cows of people, and pointing out the obvious flaws in them is a problem. Also, there's video games. Like, video games have a great advantage here in the sense that, to bring back this rant to video games, is like, if you had people playing virtual football, they wouldn't be in risk of danger, and you could probably do that fairly easily. Esports is kind of that idea. Unfortunately, even esports have gotten to the point where it's so high scale that there needs to be severe limitations on how much they can train and how much repetitive wrist motion they can have and such. It very quickly, esports has turned into the exact same system where it's very young people burn out very early. The lucky ones might win $1 million or two. The unlucky ones may never win more than a few $1,000s in prizes split between multiple people. Bane. Let's see.
Want to play?
I think I'm gonna lose here. Should have tried this one.
Eden must wait.
I think I've lost my win streak. Next we have a game called F-Earth.128, an unexpected walk, which I assume that's F and not some kind of weird symbol. This looks like a kind of low effort pixel graphics platformer for $4.99 English only. really don't have any reason why I need to continue playing with Shadowcraft. I'm just trying to learn what cards are good or what cards are bad, but I probably should move over to like Fairycraft. You still get a lot of images that when they're in the loading screens that look a little bit more anime than you ever really get, because it's like a full screen image and you get kind of the background. Whereas when you're looking at the cards, they're just a little too zoomed out to have that feeling. Yeah, you can definitely see like the white background and a focus on one character and not showing really any background images compared to something like this that just has garbage in the background all over the place. And even the leader skins kind of have a dull background to them. That it does definitely has a different visual feel. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Amazon has canceled the free-to-play game Crucible. So, development team behind Crucible, Amazon Game Studios' effort to break into free-to-play multiplayer shooter, announced Friday the evening they would halt development of the game after years of work, which it does kind of go to say that Amazon is having more trouble just purchasing its way into being a video game developer than taking over other industries. Like them purchasing Twitch and Twitch still being kind of a mess and not really working great, and then them eventually just disassociating themselves from Twitch and changing it from Twitch Prime free games to just Prime free games. There's a level of lack of success there, and then here we can see Amazon Game Studios, which has, I think, had to cancel 2 games at this point. Is really showing a lack of success. Last known Amazon Game Studio cancellation was the Brawler Breakaway in 2018, so take 4 years before that, and I think that probably means they haven't put out anything in probably 6 years. Apparently some purchases had already been made, and they're going to refund it, which is nice, instead of making people hunt them down.
Watch me, miss.
Let's see. This is a good 4th turn card. You put out these and
Useless.
arg. That sucked. That's not how I meant for that to play. There's been issues with the game not letting me play until everything had straightened out, but in that one instance it let me play before everything had straightened out, and then I get penalized for it, so I guess Shadowverse had been doing me a favor up until that point. Let's see. Susan Wojcicki 4 hours ago tweeted, "The CEO of YouTube, congratulations on having the most viewed coming up vlog on YouTube of all time. At Nikki Tutorials, we appreciate everything you do to make the world a little bit more beautiful." So YouTube culture and trends, trans visibility, and coming out on YouTube, which, if October really is supposed to be Spanish American Heritage Month, it kind of smacks in the face that now Susan Wojcicki is just pushing her standard SJW trans creators. Like, I don't have any problem with them, but it really is just another nail in the coffin of just how much they are hyper focused on that one subject. Whereas if Susan Wojcicki is going to comment on any content on YouTube, which probably she shouldn't. It would probably save her a lot of time to just say, I will never comment on my YouTube channel about specific creators or specific videos. I will only comment about general policies and general features happening in YouTube. That would save her a lot of time, and it would help her just avoid the obvious bias that she has. And they all do. All the California SJWs that pretty much run YouTube. And a tweet like this and a congratulations like this really is just highlighting that one creator, because there's still going to be thousands of other trans characters, creators that are going to be treated as badly as any other small YouTube content creators. They're not going to get special preferences, or if they do get special preferences, then that just mistreats all the other creators out there. So you kind of are screwed one way or the other.
Want to play?
But yeah, I have seen only one tweet about the Mexican heritage being October. I still feel like it's kind of ridiculous that October would be claimed to be Mexican Heritage Month. As I pointed, there's just like 108 countries in the world. You can't have a single month to any country. There's probably more than 12 big, like, first world countries, you know, in the world also, so you couldn't even do that. But particularly putting Mexican Heritage Month around October makes no sense to me. Dias de los Muertos is kind of a unique cultural event that is held in October in Mexico, but being a mostly Catholic country, Easter is a much more important holiday, I imagine, or their own Independence Month, Independence Day, the month that their own independence happens, is probably way more of an important event than that. So it feels like whoever picked that month either very flippantly picked that month or followed some stereotypical thinking to pick that month. Think I'm gonna throw out there, I think like France had its independence in October, but I could totally be wrong about that. But there definitely are some countries out there where it would kind of make more sense. And I guess it definitely shows that the United States is making the calendars pretty much, because Mexican heritage only really makes sense to people in North America. Australians and Russians aren't going to particularly care too much about that. But yeah, Susan Wojcicki still being Susan Wojcicki, and picking and choosing winners that she wants to highlight and show off. Meanwhile, she's not really doing anything to actually improve YouTube. There is a blog here from Gamma Sutra, Behavior Trees and the Future of Intelligent Control. This might be interesting if you are looking into going into programming. Although at a certain point, I think there is an AI programmer position that's all about programming the AI of characters, and then there is a general coding game flow programmer, and then there's probably an animation programmer too. There's a lot of specialization that you kind of have to decide you're going to go down while you're probably going through a programming college. Knowing how to do in general the concept of all of those positions is very helpful, but at a certain point you will have to probably make a decision like, unless you're just going to be a one-man show. Like, I imagine the programmer that made The Binding of Isaac was just one person, so he probably did program the AI of all the enemies, and the AI of those enemies are very predictable and understandable eventually if you become an expert in that. But he also had to program how the rest of the game played. And AI and behavior trees are kind of unique to video game programming, because you're not going to have like different behaviors for something like Siri. Even if you want Siri to act more human-like, you don't want to give it independent thought or the appearance of independent thought. You want it to look to be consistent in its actions and consistent in its reactions. Only if you were going to try and create a sentient AI, which I don't know what the real point of trying to create a sentient AI is, where sentience, in my opinion, is the enemy. There's too many people with bad opinions and that do stupid random actions already in the world. Why create robots that could do the same thing? I could see maybe having a bit less scripted, like virtual pets. Like if you're gonna make a robot cat or dog, maybe you want it to be a little bit more sentient feeling, but I think that would be pretty much it.
Not one for pranks.
Okay.
You're done for. Strange.
You follow
Like
behind.
that. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Test Final Revelation, which looks like it is a visual novel using RPG Maker. From the looks of it, seems to be basically just text for $1.19, English, allegedly full audio. I need to hurry up. I said there was no news, and then I managed to rant and rave, and today would be kind of a great day to not really go long, although going long today might be better than going long on Wednesday. Just do this, and then this, and this.
Let's play.
Next we have Cardpocalypse, which came out just today. I feel like there was another game called Cardpocalypse, but apparently not. Maybe it was in early access? Yeah. So this has been in early access and it's now coming out of early access. We don't actually see that happen very often, which is a indictment of the early access system. But you can see the Steam ratings seem to be about 59%, and there aren't actually any reviews showing up, I think because it left early access or what, I don't know. I don't know what really is going on here. How all the reviews somehow are missing. But I would say this art style gives me pause, and a character in a wheelchair seemingly being one of the characters you play as and having RPG elements. There may have been 2 or 3 games that have gone under the title of Cardpocalypse. That could be another factor there. Do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? Let's do this.
Hear the voices of the wind.
And then this. And then evolve this. So we can kill that.
Sorry, I've got to take a break.
And then that one.
Play.
That one. And then that one. So I guess I leave Cardpocalypse just on the follow list. Next we have a game on Steam called Rhymestorm, which seems to be kind of a rhythm game of some sort.
My dance quenches
They're saying
the
it's like a freestyle rapping rhythm game.
I will silence
It's
you
packed.
once and for all.
So
a blue piece at the dance's end.
I wonder if it's just like listening to your voice and trying to say, you're trying to say random words, or if you're trying to say things that just rhyme, or the algorithm thinks rhymes with the words that are being shown on screen. Either way, this doesn't seem like this is a real game. It says it's English full audio. This really does feel like this is someone trying to trick somebody into thinking this is a game when really it is just a random word generator.
The stars pale beside the moon. The dance ends.
There we go.
Dancing in circles and circles.
That.
The winds of true
That.
courage.
So yeah. Next we have a game on Steam called Pursuit of the Bookkeeper, which looks like an RPG maker game. Although it does kind of have a heads-up display of something that looks kind of like a Zelda game. But when you ignore the heads-up display, it really looks ugly. Otherwise, $4.99, English full audio. Seems like there might only be one dungeon in the entire game. It's hard to make an argument for a game like this compared to, saying, playing Hades, like where there are roguelike type games out there
So fun.
that
This is exactly what I didn't want.
let's see,
The winds of true courage. Nature.
that,
She suffers so much more. Let's play.
and go and hit that and that. Go and evolve that.
This ends here. My power is waking. Time to dance.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of games out there that are old school looking like the original Zelda game, certainly, including future versions of the Zelda game. But there are games out there that take the general idea of going in the dungeons and getting abilities and leaving. Maybe they don't do it quite like Zelda games, and there is room for improvement there, but just going back to the old graphics doesn't really fix anything. Ward. Fairies. We do this
The
one,
forest be at peace.
and then this
Can
one,
go the distance.
and then what can we do?
Order takes flight for a peaceful tomorrow.
Not sure how we solve this problem. I need... I'm not gonna run out of cards. Oh no, he's just gonna play a card that can completely bypass all the ward cards. Which, that is something that probably should be in my deck. If I have that card, which I probably don't. Next we have a game on Steam called Pedal Crash, which looks like it is a kind of pixel graphics match 3 game, player versus player match 3 game slash Tetris game. There was a lot of these, so I'm not sure if this is an old game getting re-released for $9.99 English only, which is kind of odd, because obviously it looks like a Japanese originating game. But on the other hand, this doesn't really have relevancy. Even if this plays slightly different, you would have to be an expert fan of Tetris style match 3 games or Tetris games. Match 3 and Tetris games are very different, but yeah, I don't think Pedal Crash looks interesting enough that I would want to want to put that on the follow list. I finished the follow list cleanup in case I haven't said that, so I'm trying now to keep it moderately small. It still has a lot of things. TechRaptor has an article here. Level 5 is apparently shuttering their North American operations. The developer behind Professor Layton, Yokai Watch, and the Ni no Kuni series has reportedly essentially closed down their North American offices, which, yeah, I could see that. Like, that would definitely be the actions I would expect from any Japanese company in the current pandemic, is to say, hey, let's get rid of all the foreigner jobs. Let's circle the wagons, go back to the Japanese offices, and let's just run everything directly out of Japan. If it's one thing that Japanese people are fairly consistent about, is it's their desire to have control over everything and have their crippling system in which you have to ask for permission and then hope that they'll get back to you in 6 months to have permission. Often it's somebody has to ask for permission to ask for permission to ask for permission, and it just makes it impossible to do any kind of business because they are incredibly risk averse. They're incredibly unwilling to do anything without having permission from everybody that they can think of to even ask for permission. Does this really mean anything to me? Do I think Professor Layton games or Yokai Watch games or the Ni no Kuni games will inherently not come to the West? I don't think we can believe that. I think that globalization has to be part of any successful Japanese company's plans going forward. There is also inherently the argument about censorship / localization, which at the end of the day, some localization feels like censorship to a lot of fans, and some censorship feels like localization to a lot of the game developers. So they're gonna have to think about that also.
I travel in search of the unknown.
If the Japanese people would tolerate foreigners of any kind in their country for long term, ideally you would want a company like Level 5 to bring in native English speakers from either the Europe or the United States, North America, to translate directly hand in hand with the creators to English. But that too is not something that they've been willing to really embrace, and as such the population is just incredibly aging and decreasing in Japan, to what will be an interesting experiment of how few people can you have in a society before it becomes fairly obvious that you don't have enough men to man an army, and some country, in this case almost certainly China, decides that now is the time to invade. And they don't want to admit that that's the direction this is going, but sadly that's the direction this is probably going. Okay, we need this, and then this, and then if we evolve this,
It won't be long now. Bad people are evil.
we can then do that,
They're picking on me.
and then we can do
May the
that,
forest be at peace. Yeah.
then we can do that,
Whoa, bud, cut the rough
and
stuff.
that.
Hey, let's play.
Next we have a game on Steam called Danmaki Red Forbidden Fruit. This is a Japanese shoot 'em up. It looks like it's a fairly old one, but honestly it could be brand new and they would look that way. $8.49, English, Japanese, Chinese. It's just a bullet hell shooter. It's widescreen, so it probably is a brand new game. At least you can play it in widescreen, although there's a lot of stuff happening on the sides. If you don't, see, I wonder if there really is a system there where you can have kind of like an RPG elements to a shoot 'em up, where getting more score or doing more damage did accomplish something more.
Not one for pranks.
Time to head home.
Okay.
This ends here. Maple.
That
You feel that too. If only you knew.
I am going to lose a card here,
Help me, fairies.
but that should be fine. TechRaptor has an article here, Darksburg review. I haven't heard of a game called Darksburg. Looks like
I'll define a brighter future for everyone.
looks like it's a game. Apparently Left 4 Dead similarities are apparent. I really should get around to playing Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2. The rogue elements didn't quite work according to this. It has too many ideas. They gave it a 5.5. Darksburg struggles to find ground as it attempts to put ideas from too many different games. This is Steam code, so it is on Steam. Solid combat mechanics, varied character design, and fun multiplayer are the positives, where the cons are matchmaking issues, progression is slow, and the lack of content. Which, okay. Didn't know what Darksburg was before this. Let's get away from Forgecraft and let's just try Swordcraft. Just kind of go through everything. Just talked about that. There's a game here on Steam that's come out called Save the Girl, which oddly is not tagged nudity, but every single screenshot is showing very explicit sexual nature images. These stationary screenshots have a stamp of over every single character to make it look like they are more nude or fully nude. There's a shark like icon over every bit, and the only actual 1 or 2 screenshots of the game looks like a complete garbage game that you probably have seen on YouTube, the one where you pull out the pins and the pins release either lava or fire or things like that. So why there's nudity combined in that game makes no sense. I actually installed one of those games that advertised, and the gameplay is just not even really what it is being advertised at all, and that was fairly obvious, but they have gotten really bad, and there has, we will talk about it, been some action by the European Union to stop these deceptive advertisings in games, which it was always illegal, but they're gonna make sure that people know it's illegal and start doing something about it. Deceptive advertising in any form is illegal in almost every country. But it seems like we may be seeing the very beginning of the last gasps of deceptive advertising, and thus these companies are going to try now to come to Steam and do this. Save the Girl is $1.69, 36 achievements, and all the achievements are letters. Like, I don't know if there actually is any nudity in the game, but every single screenshot implies that you are going to see a lot of adult content. But on the other hand, whenever I see adult content on Steam, I have to think to myself, well, today's not Friday. It hasn't been 2 weeks since the last time I saw an adult game released. So it does seem like Steam is either on one hand dropping the ball, or on the other hand, if you want to look at it, loosening up its secret restrictions that it had around when it actually would publish adult content. And frankly, they would have to loosen up the restrictions at this point. There's just so few games actually coming out. It would be ridiculous to try to limit it, because you're not even limiting it for something else. You would just be limiting it out of spite, which honestly they were always doing that. But it also opens up a potential problem if we start to see like Steam getting a little desperate and they starting to kind of embrace low effort adult games. There's a big difference between good quality adult games and low effort adult games. But if Steam is starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel and they just trying to sell as much as they can because they're not making money, that's a big red flag. Because then if Steam right now, when people have plenty of time but not that much money, can't make a profit, then it's possible nobody can make a profit. And if Steam went out of business, we would all be in trouble. All PC gamers would be in trouble.
No one gets past me. No one gets past me.
Moving on, TechCraft has an article. A first edition Charizard Pokemon trading card goes for $220,000. Okay. So, yeah. What's funny here is I don't know if I have a first edition Pokemon trading card. This image seems to be of an English title one, so it's not like the Japanese ones. But I'm fairly certain I do have a fairly early edition Pokemon trading card game, Charizard. So, unless there was something specific other than it just being in really, really good conditions, which my whatever condition I have, it is probably in not good condition. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's completely destroyed because it's just sitting in a garage.
It all ends here.
But
No more fooling around. Easy does it.
that would be cool.
When a thing breaks,
That would be cool, but that would be something I would never find out either. Like, it would be not worth my time to try and sort through my entire Nintendo collection to find something that I think is worth something, just to then be assured by every auctioneer that it wasn't really worth anything. It's much easier and better. I'd be much happier just donating the whole thing to a museum. That being said, one of the attempted startups of a museum in California had to shut down its offices. I don't know if they just went the whole... I think they put everything in storage, so I don't think this is they went the full route of actually shutting down everything, but the idea of having a business open in, I think it was San Francisco, which is just so expensive in the middle of a pandemic, was unavoidable. And that is my fear too, is that the museum that I have my eye on will somehow not be able to survive long enough. And it would really, really suck to donate like almost a life's work, half of a life's work, a childhood's life's work of collecting Nintendo stuff, to donate that to a museum and then have the museum just throw it away. But at a certain point, that is the risk you take. Is that anything and everything you give to a organization like that could just be tossed.
another takes its place.
Easy does it. Gotta love the scenic.
Here we have a Gamma Sutra article. There's a report that Microsoft will deploy a browser workaround to bring Game Pass to iOS. We'd already heard this. but Gamma Sutra seems to be kind of slow. Here we have a game on Steam called Deathroids, which is just an Asteroids clone. $2.54, English full audio. Yeah, I don't know if I actually checked to see if I was streaming today. Well, whatever. Can't really do anything about it today.
Raise everything.
Can't really do anything about it now.
Oh no, you don't. Oh no, you don't.
Easy does it.
Next we have a game on Steam called Road Rage Royale, which looks like it's a racing around a single map and crashing very similar cars into each other. Not very interesting. $17.99, ridiculously expensive. English, allegedly full audio.
An exemplary battle.
Man, sure seems like I need this card, because that card has now twice just wreaked havoc on my chances to win. Next we have a game on Steam here called Zone of Death, which looks like it's an asset flip zombie first person shooter. Yeah, doesn't even have zombies, it's just an asset flip first person shooter. Early access, $9.79, English full audio, nothing there. Like, obviously not gonna be that interesting. Gamma Sutra has Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, the one who attained glory, main story trailer. I feel like we had already talked about this. Did I somehow end up opening old tabs? I don't think so. Here we have a game that's all in Asian characters, and it looks like it is almost like a pachinko machine. There's just so much going on there. Definitely feels like it's a gambling game of some sort for Chinese people. English is not supported, free to play. In-app purchases, Chinese only. Yeah, doesn't look like anything I could recommend to even the Chinese speaking people. At a certain point, I think Steam is going to have to address the idea of games that are 100% around a gameplay mechanic that's gambling, and then having in-app purchases to refill and gamble around that. At a certain point, I guess it isn't technically gambling by many definitions, in the sense that you never get any money back out, but if it feels like gambling and it looks like gambling, most people would say it's gambling. Spell boost that twice.
Maybe, just maybe, this magic will help.
What does this one do? 3 damage to enemy follower. Next we have a game on Steam here called Dungeons of Clay, which has a spinning wheel and then seems to take you to a platforming game. Visually, this looks like it's like a roguelike doing kind of a Spelunky thing. It's $7.49, English full audio. See, 999,999 procedurally generated endings. Not sure if that means anything at that point. See, a game like this could be the next Binding of Isaac. It probably isn't, but just in case it is, I'm going to put that on the fall list. Also, the Game Festival Autumn Edition is happening, so yeah, they're showing off people playing games, and there's a few games on sale, but a lot of these games either I've never heard of, or they are not really on sale as much as they're just being shown, and they're pushing and promoting the idea of getting a demo.
You'll all see.
When a thing breaks, another takes its place.
Darkness on this plane.
Hurry up and wrap up here. Next game is tagged nudity, so I won't show it. It's called Anime Space Sniper. It's the same asset flip anime girls in bikinis. This time you're shooting them with a sniper gun and they're ragdolling with blood coming out of them. So at this point, that's a weird choice because I don't know how many people really want their anime waifus to be shot. Honestly, I don't think anybody wants any of these games, and at a certain point, it'd be very easy to say, hey, we're not going to let any game with the word anime immediately through, and we're going to put this restriction to say, if that's going to be in your title, we're going to go and look at it and give it a second look, and if it looks like it's a low effort garbage game, as Anime Space Sniper does look like it's a low effort asset flip garbage game, we're going to reject it for just being repetitive content and low quality content, which at this point it is repetitive content as much as it's low quality. Next we have the game Voyeur, which I didn't know that this wasn't on Steam. Interesting. Voyeur is a full motion video game. I don't think really has any nudity in it, and the visual quality on it would be pretty low anyways, but it's, I think you act as a voyeur spying on people through the windows, and you manage, I think, to eventually solve a mystery around that. $7.64. I don't see a reason not to put this on the fall list. It's probably going to go on the wish list. It'd be kind of hard to cover a game like this, even if it doesn't have nudity. There was clearly going to be some scenes of people in their underwear, women in their underwear, probably only. But yeah, I don't know if there's more of a there's a way you could put the word voyeur in a YouTube video and guarantee that it doesn't get demonetized immediately. Of course, the thing about voyeurism is that there's really not a good chance that you would look through a random window and see people being naked with the windows open. Like, that would happen sometimes, certainly, but not a lot. And digital voyeurism, of course, has taken it to a whole new level, just putting cameras everywhere and spying on people 24/7 until you do get that 5-second clip that you're looking for. Also, voyeurism is kind of more of a interesting fantasy. I think that's the best way to put it, where someone pretending like they're a voyeur in a porn video is way easier, more effective, and efficient than actually engaging in voyeurism. Whereas perhaps 50 years ago, when porn wasn't readily available on the internet because the internet didn't exist, voyeurism became more of a thing. Nowadays, it would be, well, it was always illegal, but the only people that would even bother to try to engage in voyeurism are not desperate for any nudity, image of nudity or something, or but they're desperate for controlling or spying on specific people, which in itself is a red flag and a problem. Next we have a game on Steam called Hargrove, which looks like it's a Mega Man / boss rush game, but it doesn't look quite polished enough that I think I'd want to play this. Like, if I was going to play any of the Mega Man games, I'd just play the Mega Man games, and it doesn't seem like there's really any reason why you'd want to play this unless you'd already played all the boss rush games. Or all the Mega Man games. This is free though, so the price is right. English full audio, so if Hargrove does look like something interesting, you do have that opportunity. Let's see. Can I do this and this? No. Can I do this and this? No. Do I want to do this? So I want to do this.
Behold the true form of this world.
And then do this.
Intention and ambition. Reveal thyself.
Shutting down.
Next we have a game. Sorry I went quiet there as I was trying not to lose. We have Human Construction VR, which looks like a VR game where you might learn some anatomy, but maybe not so much. It's an interesting thing. I could see if this was more visually polished, putting this in like a TV or movie and saying this is how CSI does it might be an interesting idea, but yeah. Best case scenario is a VR game. I can put it on the follow list. It's $22.49. It's English and Russian, which is suspect. I lost again. Yep, seems to be still a consistent theme. Might just be easier to go back to rotation Bloodcraft. See, Gamatsu has an article. Yuan Sword 7 launches October 29th for the PS4 and
I guess
PC.
you're looking for a fight.
Yeah, Zwan Yon. I don't know how you pronounce that. I don't think I'm pronouncing it right. I haven't heard of the series either. That's kind of interesting. It kind of looks like a feudal Japanese highly polished or feudal Chinese highly polished game where at a certain point you freeze time and then you attack monsters. Doesn't look bad. It kind of feels like an Asian attempt at something like The Witcher. And if it's coming out to Steam, let's look at the Steam page. We have this. And I'll put this on the follow list even though it's not out yet, which I just took all of the games that were not out yet off the Steam list. This publisher, Softstar, has Jean 17 and some other games. They all look like Chinese only games. So maybe they're trying to shift over to more global listings. And honestly, that's not a bad idea. Having potentially 3 or 4 Chinese games listed rating pretty good would give some small credibility to the developers.
When a thing breaks, another takes its place.
On Steam specifically, it's being labeled as Zhanwan Sword, not Zhanwan Sword 7, so if there has been 6 other games, really, they have not been available on Steam, so that might be an issue. Of course, it also might be a case that it just looks really pretty and actually is a low effort game like so many other games we've seen, both from China and other places. Here's that article I was talking about, Gamma Sutra. UK regulators, not Europe I guess at this point. We can say UK is not Europe. It never really was because the United Kingdom I think includes like Australia and Canada. But UK regulators banned misleading Homescape and Gardenscape's pin puzzle ads, which like this is exactly what I'm talking about. They are so bad and they are so misleading. And even though in the one game I did install there were pin puzzles like that, they weren't the main focus of the game, and they led to misleading. Plus, those pin puzzles actually are pretty low effort garbage. Anyways, they don't really work. Next, we have a game from Digipen, which means it's a student project called Netgunner, which seems to be taking the visuals of Netrunner and turning it into a top-down twin-stick shooter, which is a creative idea, certainly. So I'm going to put this on the wish list because it's a student project. It's free otherwise. It probably isn't much, though. I wouldn't imagine that there's more than two or three puzzles or levels at most. Let's see.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Verifying access.
That, that,
Unbelievable.
and then the turn. TechCrafter has an article, coincidentally. The original Rogue is coming to Steam in October of 2020, which it pretty much needs to be free at this point, because I couldn't imagine paying more than $1.99 for it. And while there's a reason to kind of spotlight it and play it for about 5 minutes, that's about as much as I think I could ever bother to spend any effort on as far as talking about a game that's relevant but just so incredibly old. Let's see, could do 2 plus 2, and then I think I've got to do this. Yeah, I do 2 damage to an enemy leader, give +2 +2 here.
No.
And then do this and this.
Enemy
and then
identified.
that.
You know that too. If only you knew.
TechRaptor has a review here called Spellbreak, for a game called Spellbreak, which looks like it might be a kid-friendly action platforming game. They gave it a 7.0. Unfortunately, magical combat is a new take on Battle Royale. We already talked about this. Man, did I literally just leave all these tabs open? Here we have a all Asian later game that's obviously a cell phone port of something. It's free, but it's Chinese only.
I hope you enjoy my traps. Nowhere to run.
Let's see. There's an inconsistency here in which, as we're 2 hours into a stream, really? Have we only been going for 2 hours? Wow. I start to kind of rush to try and be done with things. It feels like it's been a lot longer than 2 hours. Next we have another game that's all Asian in characters, and once again looks like it's a mobile phone port first. It's free. Also, Chinese only. In-app purchases though, so free being a relative term.
My speed is second to none. Can't keep up.
How did I miss that? Lava waits on the ocean floor.
I didn't play that quite right.
I'm not cut out to be a mermaid. You can do it.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Beach Ball Valley, which clearly is just a physics experiment with a bunch of asset flip beach balls all over the place. There really can't be a game here. That's virtual reality for $2.99 English only, which is way too cheap for a VR game. Like anything below $5 in VR is ridiculous. Next we have a game on Steam called Coring Wonderland VR Macadio's Macadino's attack. I can't pronounce that. It looks to me like it's a very like Alice in Wonderland type looking environment where you're doing a lot of standing in one place and being attacked by things. Really, I think that's pretty much it. It's $15.99 English, Chinese, and Korean. There might actually be a game here, so I'm gonna put it on the fall list, but also wouldn't be surprised. This also kind of feels like something that you would play in like a kids museum. Right.
The curtain rises for a new era.
Ready to witness my true strength?
Time is of the quint. Welcome.
So I'm
the
gonna hit
end.
this.
I failed.
And now if he has anything strong, he'll start drawing cards.
Lifeblood.
Which I don't know if that's actually gonna win.
How elusive.
Eradicate it
The
all.
echoes of
Everything
age.
but the truth.
This victory is a testament
Nope.
to your strength.
Well, we're still getting experience. It's gonna really suck if I start getting to a point where I literally don't have anything I'm gaining at all, because I've just leveled up all the characters to the maximum, and these losses are then at that point completely pointless. Let's just go back to Shadowcraft. That was winning, although I think mostly by luck. Next we have a game on Steam called Bisque-Doll, B-I-S-Q-U-E. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. This looks like this is just an asset flip horror walking simulator though. Requires a controller, it's $2.69, bunch of languages.
You must die.
So yeah, I don't know. Apparently it's a Hong Kong urban legend about a year ago. Yeah, so I don't know if this is really a Hong Kong urban legend or not. Might be interesting to see, will a game that just has the word Hong Kong in it get astroturfed by the Chinese government and negatively reviewed? Well, not in the English reviews, at least not yet. But that's kind of a silly reason to put a game on the fall list, is to see if there is going to be a controversy around it. Because if there is some kind of controversy around it, it would be so small that most people probably wouldn't report on it.
Like I said in my tip-off note.
Next we have a game that's all Asian characters that looks like it's a visual novel murder mystery. This might be Chinese, but it might be Japanese. Early access Chinese, yeah. Doesn't look terrible for animation for a visual novel. I guess the real question is just how many words and how many characters is something like that going to eventually boil down to. We haven't gotten a great concept of just how many characters are in Chinese visual novels versus Japanese visual novels, or how many animations there are. Which that's going to determine the perceived value of a lot of these stories. Or at least the initial perceived value until somebody actually let's see. Storm, Burial Right King 1-1. Fanfare. Burial Right to that.
I'm coming. Detestable.
Please steal responsibly.
I'm coming for you. Detestable.
You wouldn't.
See, next we have a game called IB, which seems to be a top-down twin-stick shooter of an eyeball. The animation doesn't look polished enough though. And those numbers on spells and abilities aren't high enough. $12.99 English full audio is being compared to Binding of Isaac. There's a big difference there. Let's see. This.
Laces, everyone. Work starts at sunset.
Then that.
You wouldn't.
See if I evolve that. That's probably a waste of an evolve. Next we have a game on Steam called Darkstone Lightseeker, which seems to be some kind of... I can't even tell what kind of game it is. I'm calling it a deck building game, but I don't know how this actually plays. Seems like there's just large piles of enemies that you kind of collect in almost a gacha style, and then you put them in certain positions and give them certain abilities and items, and then they just attack on their own. That's an interesting twist on deck building, that you would just have all of your deck effectively playing at the same time. This is early access, $17.99, bunch of languages. I think this deserves a follow because I need to wrap my head around how that would even actually play. Let's see. I can do this, which lets me do that.
If
I fall.
I can do that,
where the wind blows, a path of
which
heaven storm.
lets me do that.
That didn't go well.
And then that might save me for one turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Bangers and Mash, which
War is a drama of life
seems
and
to be a lot of stationary images that seem to split between a couple different things. It looks like it's a 2.5D platforming game of some sort. It's early access, requires a controller, it's $4.99, it's English.
You're too strong.
I think I probably would be rather generous to put this on the follow list, but I think that's what I'm gonna do. Let's see, just to be certain, let's come over here and try this Havencraft deck. Next we have a game on Steam called Element X. Oh, by the way, I installed yet another extension plugin for Chrome. Probably installing all these is not super helpful, but it's a balance, and it makes the scroll bars thinner and a little bit more thematically dark. That does mean that I pretty much have to be within 10 pixels over the scroll bar to scroll, but usually I'm scrolling with the middle mouse wheel anyway, so the scroll bars might as well not exist. There was something I changed in Windows, oddly, that then turned around and stopped allowing some web pages in Chrome to hide the scroll bar, which was making trouble for YouTube Studio, which still should be called YouTube Studio Beta. But I undid that and then installed this instead. Here we have Element X, which looks to me like it's a physics flashy neon game that's a top-down twin-stick shooter. It's $2.54 English, allegedly full audio. Bullet hell game. It does kind of look like a bullet hell game from the top-down perspective. Alright, play this.
Soar the skies in the name of justice.
Let's see, we have just a couple more games to talk about, and then we'll be certain to move on. We'll be done. Next, we have a game on Steam called Mintworks, which seems to me like some kind of card game, but not particularly an interesting looking one. Strategy board game, tabletop for $9.99, English and Spanish, Latin America. 20-minute light worker placement game. Weird. Well, that does not sound like an interesting game to me.
The uncharted desert awaits.
So I'll skip putting that on the fall list. Next we have Ozone Guardian, which is a shoot 'em up type game by the looks of it. Looks more arcadey than most shoot 'em ups. $2.24, English, German. Yeah, kind of like an Asteroids or Space Invaders. That's it, Space Invaders. And I mix up Asteroids and Space Invaders fairly often. And then this.
Yum yums to fill my tum tums.
What do we have here?
Next we have a game on Steam just called Bunny Hop, which that certainly seems like a low effort title. And while it does look like there is some platforming in this game, this is one of those examples of a game where there doesn't seem to be a heads up display or any collectibles or anything that you would want to do as you're platforming, so it's not really an interesting or polished concept for a game. $7.99, English, allegedly full audio. Again, they all do that at this point.
My sword serves as a powerful talisman.
Let's see.
You're done for. In the gods I trust.
What do we want to do?
Someone switch with me.
Kill that.
What do we have here?
And hit that. And then the turn. Yeah, I don't know if a bunny hop game in general would be particularly interesting, because you almost at that point would have to I don't know what you would do to make that interesting. You're just making something like Getting Over It with an A40 is +2/2 in rush. I could place this and this, and then this will recover 2 play points and let me play one other thing. But
I'll speak to anyone who will listen. Clutch and
just do
twang.
that instead. TechRaptor has an article here. The THQ Nordic parent Embracer Group has raised $648 million with new shares. So acquisitions and share raising, it does open up the door to some dangers, because you just never know.
To fill my tum-tums.
Like you never know if Embracer Group really is more running a scam here than they are trying to actually make video games and sell a product. There we go.
Nom nom.
Got you now.
So I could kill this character,
Got you now.
which I think is the right move.
I know when I've lost.
Justice was carried out. Order takes flight for a peaceful
Okay.
tomorrow.
Oh, I suppose I should mention that I've been testing out a program that comes pre-installed with Linux called Script, SCRIPT. It basically just records everything you type into the terminal, and my hope is that that would be a quick and easy way to create a script to just have a default way to set up a Linux build the way I like it, quick and easy. It kind of does that, it kind of doesn't, because it tends to record in a weird way and give you too much information, so there's just going to be a lot of curation and editing that one would have to do after the fact, and more I'm particularly for a minimal CentOS NAS server build, there's a lot less to set up there than what my Debian server with web browsers and services like that really build around.
Fate has carried you far, but it ends here.
So yeah, I've been trying to use it. I found it slightly disappointing, but also slightly helpful. Although I do need to double check to see if when you type script and then exit, and at that point does it, and then type script again, if it overwrites the original file, because I think it might overwrite the original file, which means there may have been some steps missed there. On the other hand, that's probably nicer than just filling up a home directory with a bunch of copies of script files. I wouldn't just inherently recommend like forcing people to automatically run script and use that. If anything, you should probably use screen, which remembers what you did last time and just continues it. So you can exit a SSH connection, and then if you have something like downloading or installing for a long time, it will bring it back to that point. We've got Hornet Strike.
Hey, let's play. Let's play.
Do we want to do this?
Help me, fairies.
Oh, then that brings me to the Humble Bundle store. And the Let's Fight bundle has 7 days left on it. And that's pretty much it. So,
Rest for a bit.
yeah. And so then that brings me back to my Twitter feed. And let's see what we got. What's on Steam? Seems like it's listing the prices now, which is interesting. My Twitter feed, but there's been kind of nothing else.
It might be dry, but it's home. For the town's prosperity.
Well, that worked better than I thought it was going to. Interesting.
Wakey, wakey. You are not prepared. So much more to excavate.
My throat's bone dry.
I tried to listen to an OpenZFS like online conference, and I could only get like five seconds into it before I was already distracted. It's like, yeah, this is gonna be dry. This is definitely gonna be too dry. Hornet Warriors.
You're done for.
Shutting down. Shutting down.
Well, that was it for the Twitter feed also. So at this point, I have literally nothing to talk about. So we will wrap up after this game. I need to play more off screen clearly, but I also have other work to do, obviously, and we have the whole Amazon Prime Day thing to set up with. I didn't talk about the Lego gingerbread house. I felt it was kind of repetitious to have a free gift of a miniature gingerbread house, and then the next year have a minifig scale version of that, and it looks almost exactly the same. It seems like they just repeated the general concept and designs. There's a lot of iffy angled roofing because it's a gingerbread house, which makes some iffy, difficult way to attach angled roofing, which I didn't fully appreciate. And I did like the gingerbread mother and father and baby that was literally a flat 2x1 cap piece that had a gingerbread baby printed on it. I like the idea of a very small cradle for the gingerbread baby. There was a lot of Lego Friends pieces in the set, which after that point I've not seen any other sets that really integrate Lego Friends pieces at all. I assume they can never really admit that Lego Friends is not succeeding, but they probably are slightly reducing the number of Lego Friends sets that they're making. Although they might have to turn around and raise that number back up, simply because of the lack of Lego City sets they can make now that they're not putting any police figures in anything. Although they probably will just sneak the police figures back in. But yeah, they're going to be limited on Lego City pieces. Although inherently Lego probably is best off kind of reducing their output, and it feels like 2020 has been the year in which they've reduced their output as far as sets, particularly expert sets. And but yeah, I like the gingerbread house set. If you're gonna get any of the Christmas sets, which at this point it'd be kind of crazy to try to get the back order of the Christmas sets, you have to kind of get them all, and I think I pretty much do have them all. There might be a few that I've missed that are really old, but once I started buying the Lego Christmas sets, I've been fairly consistent on it, and that's like a once a year thing. If that was for the only Lego sets I was buying, that would be fine. Of course, this year there's also the Lego NES with the big TV. I want to get that. That'll be particularly expensive, and a couple other things. So I could see myself spending $400 or $500 on Lego alone in the next couple days, and then like $400 or $500. No, probably much more, $1,000 on Prime Day. But some of that's pretty expensive stuff that I've been putting off purchasing. Bookshelves. It's hard to get good quality bookshelves without spending at least $200 on each. And I want to get at least two, so
Such a lovely couple.
a TV's like $150. TVs have gotten pretty cheap. I could definitely use a rethink in a lot of my furniture that I have, but buying tons of new furniture is kind of crazy, and ideally you want to go as minimalist as possible.
Coming for you.
Yeah.
You're missing
Yep. Well, that was 2.5 hours, man, and that certainly felt longer. Though. And it's not too bad if I could just get off screen one more victory here, and then on Wednesday get 3 more victories there. We would be in a good position. I still haven't done the solo stuff, and I don't see there being a likelihood that I'll ever get around to doing that. We might as well open another one of these just to celebrate, and then that'll be the end of the stream. Getting gold cards. That's about it. So we opened like 3 packs and we didn't liquefy after that, so we should have somewhere around 18 cards, 20 cards extra. Wow, 2 of them are gold, so we get a nice little boost in vials. Although still 4,500 vials is not enough to really justify going and trying to craft anything with it. And then we haven't checked these in a while. Let's see, 107 rank wins here, 19 here, 8 here, 15 here, 20 in Bloodcraft, which is interesting, 8 in Shadowcraft. There's clearly still too much of a focus there. And I think emblem wise, we've probably unlocked a few emblems that are new. Kind of seems like you're just going to constantly get emblems. Far too many emblems, frankly. But I don't think we've gotten any new characters to focus on. And while Forcecraft is at 112, everything else is right around 50, and Shadowcraft in particular is one that could use more gameplay. Well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist.